Hi lovelies, welcome back to another video. I hope everyone is doing well. Today I'm finally sitting down and bringing to you guys the most requested video to date, and that is my acrylic liquid to powder ratio. And I'm going to share with you guys how I pick up a small, medium and large bead of acrylic. Now a quick disclaimer, this is the way that I have done this since I have learned the proper consistency that works best for me. I'm not saying that you have to do it this way. However, you can take one or two tips and tricks that I share with you in this video and add it to the way that you do things, tweak it accordingly until you master a way that you're happy and comfortable with. So before I go any further, let me give a huge shout out to my notification squad. Thank you guys so much for being the first 3 people to comment on my last video. And if you're finally ready for today's tutorial to begin, then let's go. Before I even start with product consistency, we need to talk a little bit about product first. Now, as a beginner or even an advanced nail tech, it's very important to have that good quality foundation acrylic system without having to break the bank. For me, I prefer to use JC Beauty Concepts, and I absolutely love this product. This is my go-to. This is what I use every day, and I always recommend them to you guys in my videos. So I use the entire line, starting with the acrylic monomer, as well as the dehydrator and the extra bond. Now the extra bond is their primer, and the JCBC system is specifically designed for professional use. However, you do not need to have a license or a certificate to order off of their website. One of my favorite products that I love from JCBC Concepts, and I can't get enough of it, is this cover blush. This is their sculpting powder, so this is a core powder, and it is amazing. It pairs so well with all different shades of skin tones, and as you guys can see, I am almost to the bottom of this container, which is horrific, and I need to get a new one because I think this is my last container, and this is what I use for my ombres. So one product that I recently started using is the sculpting powder in clear, and I used it in this video and I absolutely love it. I showed you guys how clear this acrylic powder is. Check that video out to see this acrylic powder in action. It is the clearest that I've ever used. You will also need a dapping dish. I prefer the ones with the lids on it. There are the ones without it. It's all about personal preference, and this is the Ugly Ducklings Crystal Dapping Dish. Another important tool is your brush. Now, if you don't want to hear this part of the video, you can go straight to the liquid to powder ratio. There is a timestamp in my description box below. However, I need to explain this, especially for my beginners. There are many different brushes on the market, and there are many different sizes. But as a beginner, I will recommend starting with either an 8, a 9 or a 10, and my preferred brand to work with is Alpha. I recently got the JC Beauty Concepts number 12 Kolinsky brush, so I have not really used it as much to say if I will recommend it yet or not, but I do prefer to work with pinched brushes. So all of my brushes are oval, so you have the Alpha number 8 and Alpha number 10, as well as the JC Beauty Concepts number 12, and this is the side profile of your brush. And as you guys can see, the JC Beauty Concepts does have a bigger belly, which means that it's going to hold a lot more liquid in the bristles of the brush. Now I am not going to be using this one today, well, at least not that much, so I'm not going to give you guys a full review on this one just yet. I will do a separate video for that. I started off with 10 and I've stuck with 10 for a lot of my years. It's only like last year or early this year I decided to go up to the number 12. So I have had this black metal alpha brush for a while. However, they no longer make this type. So if you order a number 10 oval brush, it is going to come with that wooden handle, which honestly just boils down to personal preference because the bristles are going to be the same. So if you'd like to follow along with me, go ahead and pause this video, grab your acrylic liquid, the powder of your choice, your dapping dish, your brush, and a piece of paper towel, and let's begin. For the most part of this video, I will be using the number 10 Oval Kolinsky by Alpha. I did go ahead and wet my brush with the liquid in order to reshape it so that it is nice and flat and ready to go. I am also going to be using the JC Beauty Concepts cover blush for my demo today, which was not a very smart idea seeing as I'm almost out. I'm using the acrylic monomer, And to start off this video, I will be using the JCBHD Concepts number 12 Oval Kolinsky. Now, the reason why I did that first is so that you guys can actually see you can use the same dipping technique to pick up a small, medium and large bead, but because of the size of the JCBHD Concepts brush, our beads are going to be a little bit bigger. So we are starting by submerging the entire brush into our acrylic liquid, and I like to dip my brush with the writing on the brush facing me. I'm going to zoom you guys in and show you how I wipe my brush to pick up my beads first. So I go all the way into my liquid, and for a small bead of acrylic, I wipe from the barrel of the brush all the way to the tip against my dappen dish. For a medium-sized bead, I go from the barrel of the brush halfway down the bristles, and then for a large bead, I just wipe the tip of the bristles off against my dappen dish. So me dragging the brush against the rim of my dappen dish is me removing any excess liquid from in my brush that I don't want for a particular size bead that I'm about to pick up. Now I'm actually going to show you guys how I would pick up a bead. So let's start with a small bead of acrylic. So I dip the entire brush into the liquid, and I wipe from the barrel of the brush all the way to the edge of the bristles. I turn my brush with the writing facing the opposite direction, and I pat into my acrylic powder 3 times. Now this is going to allow me to pick up a small bead. You want your bead to look really nice and smooth, so that way you know that it is a perfect consistency. And I'm going to show you guys later on in the video a bead that is both too dry and too wet, but right now we're focusing on picking up the perfect consistency. So in with a medium-sized bead, I go all the way into the liquid, and I drag from the barrel of the brush halfway down the bristles, and then I tap into my acrylic powder 3 times once again, and I pick up a medium-sized bead. And again, as you guys can see, the bead is nice and smooth and shiny, which means it started to absorb all the remaining liquid that is in the bristles of the brush. So now with a large bead, I just dipped it, wipe the tip of the brush just to make sure that any excess liquid is out. Again, patting into my acrylic powder 3 times, and then I pick up a large bead. So now I'm going to switch over to my number 10 alpha brush, going straight into that liquid and passing the entire brush against the rim of my dappen dish, tapping into my powder 3 times to pick up a small bead. I always tap into my powder 3 times no matter what size bead I'm about to pick up. My main concern is dragging the amount of liquid that needs to come out of the brush, and then once I go in 3 times, I know that I will pick up the perfect consistency bead. So again, to do a large bead, I just wipe the excess directly off of the tip of the bristles, go in and pat my brush 3 times in my acrylic powder, and then I get a large bead. So in the acrylic powder, as you guys can see, you can tell there are 3 different size beads that were picked up. And I'm zooming you guys in once again to show you how I remove the excess liquid out of my brush. Again, it is easier for me to focus on draining the liquid out of the brush rather than remembering, okay, for a small bead I need to pat once or drag this amount, or for a medium-sized bead I need to drag like twice as long or pat twice as much. It is a lot easier just to remember how to wipe your brush rather than how to actually pat it into the acrylic. So when I dip my brush into the liquid, the writing that is on my brush is facing in my direction, and when I go in to pick up that bead of acrylic, the writing is then facing down into the container with my acrylic powder. So again, we are going to pick up a small bead, and I like to tap my acrylic rather than drag it. So again, a small bead, you want to go all the way into your liquid and drag from the tip of that barrel all the way to the edge of the bristles. For a medium-sized bead, you go from the tip of the barrel to halfway down the bristles of your brush. And for a large bead, you go all the way into your acrylic liquid with your brush, tap the tip of the bristles against the rim of your dappen dish, and pat 3 times into your acrylic powder. Now, I am going to show you guys me doing this in real time. You don't need to worry about speed when it comes to picking up your acrylic powder after a period of time of practicing or doing this on a regular basis. It is going to come natural. You're not even going to realize exactly what you're doing because your hand-eye coordination children is just going to know exactly what to do in order to pick up the correct consistency bead all the time. So I tried to pick up the container so that you guys can see, but some of it shifted, but you can still tell that there were 3 beads that were picked up from inside of this container. So again, I'm going to show you guys, but this time with a close-up of the actual powder. So we're doing a medium-sized bead first because I did drag to the middle of the bristles. So nice and smooth, not runny, not too dry. And one thing I want to say with JC Beauty acrylic powders is they are self-leveling. So now with a small bead, and now I'm going to pick up a large bead. So this did not turn out at all what I was hoping that it would have turned out, to show you guys like the 3 different size beads in the container. Probably did them too close, but you guys get the idea, right? Yeah. So now I'm going to try to show you guys what a too dry of a bead looks like. So you don't want to go and do this. Dip your brush and wipe it on the rim of your dapping dish. Like dip, wipe until all the liquid comes out, and then go in and drag that acrylic powder and end up with this. From the time you see those crystal beads in the acrylic, it's not smoothing, and then around the rim of that bead has like the acrylic powder. That means that that bead is way too dry. Now the example of a bead of acrylic that is way too runny. So I just dipped into my acrylic liquid, didn't bother to wipe any excess acrylic out of my brush, and then I immediately went into my powder, and now the acrylic bead is literally dripping off of my brush. You do not want this, because when you transfer that bead of acrylic onto the nail that you're building up, all the excess liquid that is piled into the bristles of the brush transfers with that bead, and if that were to go onto the nail, it will run everywhere and you will not be able to control it the way that you need to control it. So again, this is the perfect bead. This is what you want. You want that acrylic to stay nice and glassy. You also want it to stay at the tip of your brush no matter how much liquid that bead absorbs from in those bristles. And most importantly, you do not want to see any rough crystal particles inside of your bead of acrylic. So this is me applying those 3 beads, small, medium and large, in real time. Again, it gets very easy with constant practice without you even having to worry, oh, did I tap 3 times, did I tap 2 times? It just becomes a rhythm. And if you practice this every single day, especially if you're now starting out, eventually, as I said before, you don't need to do it exactly the same way that I am doing it. Tweak it so that you feel comfortable with the way that you are picking up your beads of acrylic. This is my way, this is what works for me. It may not necessarily work the same way for you, so make it your own technique. So now I'm going to show you guys how easy it is to pick up the same size bead every single time if you follow these steps. So we're going to do a row of small beads of acrylic. So we wipe the entire bristle of the brush after dipping it into the acrylic liquid, and then pat 3 times into the acrylic powder. Again, patting 3 times into the acrylic powder. So you guys can see all 3 beads are the same size. So that is your row of small beads. For the medium sized bead, you go into your acrylic liquid, you wipe halfway down the bristles of your brush, and then you pat 3 times again into my acrylic powder, and there you have your medium size row. Each bead of acrylic is the same size as well as the same consistency. And now we're going to do the large bead of acrylic. So you submerge your entire brush once again into the acrylic liquid, and you do not do that. That is for a small bead. You just tap the edge of the bristles, then you pat 3 times once again into the acrylic powder. So once it is that you take your time, you can zoom in, you can slow it down, you can fast forward it. This is me working in real time. You can pick up the right size bead at the right consistency every single time. Just focus on wiping the bristles of your brush the proper way. So now we are going to apply what we just learned, and we are going to lay some beads of acrylic onto the nail as if you were doing your own nails or a client. So we're going to start with medium sized beads. For me personally, I work with medium to small beads of acrylic once building up my enhancements. Hardly likely would I go in and use a large bead. Starting by dipping my brush into my acrylic liquid, and from the barrel of the brush pressing halfway down the bristles at the edge of my dapping dish, and then tapping 3 times into my acrylic powder, I place that bead of acrylic right where the natural free edge would meet the nail extension. And you guys saw I got a little bit carried away right there, and that's because I got distracted. I was talking to hubby at the same time, but because of the consistency of the acrylic, I can go in and pat that acrylic into place without it drying too fast or running everywhere. Taking another medium-sized bead, and I'm placing this right behind the bead of acrylic that I placed previously. Again, patting that acrylic and using the body of my brush to pat and pull that acrylic to blend it into the previous bead that was originally on the nail. Taking the tip of my brush and making sure there is no product around the side walls. Taking another medium-sized bead and placing it in front of the bead that we first laid, making sure that it blends back up into that first bead. And now with the body of my brush, and I did need a little extra liquid for this part because again I kept getting distracted by our conversation, so I did need to wet my brush in my acrylic liquid in order to help move that acrylic a little bit more. But as you guys can see, it did lay really nice and smooth, and this is why I like working with my acrylics at this consistency, because I have full control over each bead that I place on the nail. I don't have to worry about it being too dry to the point where I cannot move it at all, and all that acrylic gets stuck in my brush and it just becomes a nightmare, or that acrylic is too wet and it's running all into the cuticles along the side walls and it's just creating a whole mess on the nail. Please bear in mind, if your acrylic is too wet, it's not going to hold to the nail plate and it's going to be very difficult for your acrylic nails to last. They're not going to last because it's not going to adhere properly. So you do want to make sure that you practice and get that perfect consistency that works well for you. So as you guys saw, I accidentally made a boo-boo in my acrylics, and it was so easy for me to go in and fix it because JC Beauty Concepts acrylic powders do give you time to work with them, and they don't set up very fast. However, they don't set that slow either. So their setting time is really good, especially if you are a nail tech in a fast-paced environment or if you are a beginner. And that is the reason why I mostly recommend them, especially as that foundation acrylic system. And if you guys are interested, I do have the entire list of every single base product that you will need to create a nail enhancement from JC Beauty Concepts listed in my description box, as well as my 15% off coupon code. So you guys do get to save yourself some money as well once you use my coupon code. I would also have the alpha link in my description box. If you want me to do an entire beginner series, go ahead and leave me this emoji with your comments in the comment section below, as well as like, share, comment and subscribe. And if you're not part of our notification squad, definitely click on the bell icon right next to that big red button so that you get notified every time I post a new video. So that is it for me. I hope everyone is having an amazing day or night, whatever time it is where you are right now, and I hope this video was really helpful and informative. If it was, tell me if you prefer the 3 bead method or the 1 ball method when you're doing your acrylic applications. As always, I would love for you guys to stay glamorous, be safe, and I'll see you soon.